Okay, so let's start. It's the best part of our lunch, which is a welcoming of keynote speaker here. So, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm David Nardaia. I'm a civilian representative of the Ministry of Defense of Georgia to NATO and EU. And at the same time, I'm a Rumsfeld Fellow, which is a great honor for me. And today I was asked to present my boss, Minister of Defense of Georgia, Ms. Tinatin Khidasheli. But first of all, I would like to, on my behalf, welcome all of you to Georgia, especially fellows, and I hope you enjoy your stay here. As I mentioned, today I have a pleasure to present Minister of Defense of Georgia, Mrs. Tinatin Khidasheli, which is not an easy job for me, because she's my boss and I should be more careful what I'm thinking about. But I'll be sure to make less mistakes, actually. So when speaking about minister, I will be using the word first many times. She's the first ever female Minister of Defense of Georgia, and I'm pretty sure it's the first precedent of having female defense minister in our wider region. She's among the founders of the first non-governmental organizations in Georgia, established in 1994, human rights group Georgian Young Lawyers Association, the presidency of which she assumed in 2000-2004. Between 1995 and 1997, she served as a director of the first free legal center in Georgia. She is a member of the Republican Party of Georgia, one of the first political non-communist parties founded in Georgia back in 1978, which was oriented to restoration of Georgian independence, establishment of political pluralism, formation of democratic institutions, and so on. She is a person who, for the first time, translated the North Atlantic Treaty of 1949 into Georgian language. So this list can go on. But as I said, I prefer to be short. So, Minister Khidasheli is an outstanding lawyer, holding degrees in international law and political science. She was a human rights fellow at the Washington College of Law and World Fellow of the Yale University. All of this was official information you can Google without my help, check it. But I think you are more interested to hear my personal view of the minister, about her other side. So, she is number 11 in the list of defense ministers with whom I had honor to work since 2002. So from statistical standpoint of view, I have quite enough data to make some comparisons, conclusions, and I will share them with you. So Minister Khidasheli is one of the most energetic and goal-oriented people who spreads the enthusiasm around her and which makes our job fun. At the same time, she is very demanding and pays careful attention to details, which of course is less fun, but we have to deal with it. She is very loyal to her values and firm on principles. Most importantly, she is a strong believer of Georgia's European and Euro-Atlantic future and does everything on her part to bring us, Georgians, where it belongs, in the family of free, democratic, sovereign nations. So I stop here. I think it's enough. But I forgot to mention one important thing. She is also married to Mr. David Usupashvili, the current chairman of Georgian Parliament, who is also not a bad guy. So. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the Minister of Defense of Georgia, Mrs. Tinatin Khidasheli. Thank you.
Thank you, David. You were doing okay before you moved to my husband, so we'll talk about that later. First of all, let me welcome you also to Georgia. This is a great pleasure and honor for me to see you all here. It's always absolutely wonderful to have people like yourselves visiting my country, enjoying this country, and I hope you have enjoyed this country. I hope we've treated you well, and if there is anything more we can do to make you come back here on all your vacations, and every time you decide to have fun, just let us know. And thank you to the organizers for this honor of addressing such an important audience. I know you've already heard the President, I think so, yeah, you've heard this morning the Prime Minister, you heard the best man in this country, Speaker of Parliament yesterday, and honestly, I don't really know what is it that I need to add to those great speeches that you already had, and you probably learned about all the troubles we go through, all the tragedies Georgia is facing today, all the challenges we are fighting on a daily basis. I'm pretty sure that you are already briefed about the current developments on our administrative boundary lines, on the daily kidnappings of the people by the Russian militaries, on almost daily violation of our airspace, drones flying in and out every time as they wish. So I believe you've heard already that the cynicism of the Russian Federation goes to some very strange levels. For example, last year when we had President Tusk, and every time I would say when we have something important happening in Georgia, they bless us with their presence in Georgia. So when we had President Tusk last year here having a press conference with our president for 28 minutes, exactly those 28 minutes Russian military helicopter was flying over the city of Gori. So we should have noticed their presence, we should have remembered their existence here, not even a second of enjoying the celebration of having a great speech delivered by the President of the European Union and all the promises and all the hopes that we might have for Georgia's European Union integration. This is the kind of a daily affair we are involved in. Obviously, being a Minister of Defense in a country that is facing the challenges of occupation and aggression on a daily basis is not the easiest job in the world. But it is pretty obvious that the only goal Russia has today, not the strategic, but the tactical goal, is that they are trying us. They are trying us every day. They are trying to provoke us. They are trying to make sure that we will respond and use it as an opportunity, obviously, after that for another, I don't know, another action against the sovereign country, Georgia. What we do is that in 2012, when this government came to power, we've said that strategic patience is the policy that we are going to pursue. Strategic patience for keeping the country under development, for keeping the country progressing, for keeping the country where we have a control going to its European and Euro-Atlantic path. We've said that we will not allow Russia to kill this country and this state altogether. We've said that we are not going to let them allow to stop our development once again, as they've been doing over and over again for the last 25 years. We've said we are going to be principled in our policies towards Russia, but at the same time, we are not going to let them to provoke us. We are not going to let another war to happen in Georgia. This is one of those goals that we pursue, because we understand that once bombs are falling, then it is very difficult to convince the businessmen to invest in this wonderful country. It is very difficult to convince the tourists to come here and enjoy the beauties of this country. It is very difficult to talk about progress and development in Georgia. At the same time, we strongly believe that if there is an option given to Abkhaz and Ossetians as to developed, prosperous European Georgia, being under the NATO security umbrella, whether they want to have their kids going to the universities in this Georgia, secure, progressing European, civilized Georgia, or to Moscow, we believe that there will be an obvious choice made by those mothers and fathers of sending their kids to the universities in Tbilisi rather than to Moscow. It might sound naive, but there are natural instincts that we can rely on. So this is basically a very general idea of where we are today, what is it that we do on a daily basis, and how we are trying to fight or to resist to the challenges that we are facing. At the same time, obviously, the only challenge we have is not from Russia. Everything else might be caused by Russia, but unfortunately it is not only Russia. But we see, we do not see the same enthusiasm everywhere else in the world as it was years back. We do not see the same readiness everywhere in the world like it was during the breakup of the Soviet Union. We have allies. Georgia has very strong allies. We just concluded in May one of the biggest, first ever, largest, I can use all those words, military training Nobel partner with 850 American troops standing here together with our guys on our Independence Day, 160 British troops, Latvians and Polish militaries. Participating in the trainings first and then participating in our Independence Day celebration. And these are kinds of moments when you believe that you are not alone. And there are friends and partners you can rely on. There are friends and partners who are ready to come and help in case you need one. But at the same time, I would say that it's only fair to say that Georgia expects more. Georgia expects more from the international community. We believe that, and at the same time, we believe that we deserve more. I just was on a debate at the Atlantic Council 2 weeks ago in Washington. And there was lots of talk about the polls that were conducted in various European countries, saying how much the NATO members, European member countries, are ready to respond to Russia's aggression if it happens on the eastern flank of NATO. And we were given the statistics that, for example, the French are not ready to fight for Poles, or Germans are not ready to fight for Estonians, and so on and so forth. There was a long list of it, and they do not know why they should go and fight for either Poles or Estonians. And that was a kind of a statistics brought to us as a proof that if that's the attitude towards already member states, then what is it that Georgia can realistically expect from NATO in a short run, or from the European Union for the same matter? And when you are facing kind of a data like that, obviously, it is a challenge. And yes, the first thing that comes on your mind is that you do not put national security on polls. You do not ask those kinds of questions on polls, whether if there is and the best example obviously was 1939 Europe, and we immediately responded at, what do you think would have been public opinion in 1939 or 38 Europe if the same poll was conducted at that time? Well, the answer is obvious. I believe that nobody doubted that in that room. So obviously, when it comes to national security, we depend a lot on the decisions of leaders, and we demand decisions from leaders, not that much from the public opinions. But at the same time, I believe that, and my response there was, and I strongly believe in it, that how many of those French who've been asked that question know that when France called for its national security, on its national security concerns, and called for the mobilization of troops in Central Africa or Mali, Georgia was the first country who responded. Out of all 28 members of NATO, all the partners of NATO, all EOPs, and they have different names for different baskets and different countries, it was only Georgia who said, we are coming together with you to Central Africa and Mali. And I don't even go into Afghanistan and Iraq. We've been second largest troops contributors for all this time. I think this is important. We never use it as an argument for opening NATO doors for Georgia. And we do not do it exclusively and only for opening NATO doors for Georgia. But at the same time, If we are manipulated with the public opinions, obviously we come back with those responses and with those answers. I don't want to keep you long from nice food that I believe will still arrive. But let me just say a couple of words as to why we think that Georgia is important. And when I say that we do not go to Afghanistan for opening doors to NATO, I really mean it. And I don't believe that the only reason why Georgia matters is that we are sacrificing our lives for the world peace and security. But I think why Georgia matters is much more strategic and much more global than just fighting in Afghanistan or in Mali. And this is obviously our geography. Obviously, this is about Georgia being an important integral part of the European security. When we hear all the talks about the energy diversity being so crucial and so important for Europe, we Georgians say that there is no energy diversity for Europe without Georgia being part of it. When we hear about the deterrence of Russia, we say there is no effective deterrence of Russia if they're allowed to have backyard policy. And if you want to prove that you do not allow for backyard policy for Russia, then Georgia is an opportunity to prove that. To tell to Russians that this is a sovereign country making its sovereign decisions, going into NATO, meeting all the conditions, being absolutely interoperable with NATO, and this is why we open the doors. Because it's their sovereign decision, and because Washington Treaty says that if countries want to join the NATO and meet the standards of democracy and interoperability, they are invited to NATO. And I can go on with this list. It's a very long list. Why Georgia matters in today's world full of challenges for NATO and Western countries. Why is it? Why most of the answers, somehow for whatever geopolitical reasons, can be answered here in this country. And it's not only about Russia, because all we see today, obviously, is Russia blackmailing the world, and the world making some steps towards Russia not to upset them, not to provoke them, and there are lots of words like that used about the Western Russia policy today. But we say that if there is anybody who seriously believes that with the full occupation of Ukraine being their job done there, and the occupation of Georgia being their job done there, if anybody believes that Russia is going to stop at the Caucasus Mountains or at the Black Sea and is not going to move ahead, that's a very unserious thinking. This is not knowing Russia at all. This is not knowing that Russia is not fighting Kiev or Tbilisi today. They have nothing to prove to Kiev or Tbilisi. They don't even need Kiev or Tbilisi. Everything they do here or in Ukraine is about you. It's about NATO, it's about Washington, it's about Paris, it's about London, it's about those countries who said for these 25 years that they have interest in democracy building, they have interest in expansion of freedom, they have interest in not having backyard policy. They really mean that there is no Soviet Union anymore. This is what Russia is trying to prove. We are facing the kind of post-Soviet hangover when people woke up there in Moscow after all the troubles of 90s and decided to get back everything that belongs to them and was taken away from them for whatever unjustifiable reasons. And they are pursuing this goal year by year, very clearly and intensively. And if there is no decision coming, I believe that Russia is going to challenge the world somewhere where it's even more painful, within its own boundaries, within the NATO, because they've done it all with the partners. There should be a next bigger challenge, and that next bigger challenge should be more important and more painful for those they want to prove that they are the superpower. They are the ones setting up rules, creating rules, and everybody else just following those rules or responding to those troubles caused and created by Russia. So this is why we say that Warsaw Summit probably is more of an opportunity for NATO than for Georgia, if they will open doors for us. This is the moment when West needs to prove to itself, first of all, and then to everybody else who tries to blackmail and get results from that blackmail, that is not possible, that nobody has veto right over their decisions. This is where, I believe, this is the country where you all can prove that countries are judged on their own merits, and that decisions are made by the agreements of two, or between the two, without involvement of any third or outside forces. If we will not manage to do it now, obviously it is going to be encouragement for Russia. And I'll just finish by remembering 2008 story, when I know the discussion is still on. I know that there is no full consensus as to why August War happened in Georgia in 2008. But there are lots of people who believe in, and I belong to that group of the people who believe in that war happened because Bucharest was seen as an opportunity by Russia, as a green light given by NATO to Russia, by non-deliverable summit, by not taking a decision, by abandoning Georgia and basically giving this loop of 6 months or 8 months or whatever was left before the next ministerial for Russia to sort out things in its backyard. I hate to see the same thing repeating itself after the Warsaw. Well, the current Georgian government is going to do everything possible and impossible for that not to repeat itself. But if you live in a country like Georgia, unfortunately, not everything depends on you and your decisions, and we've seen it in 2008. That it does not always depend on you. With this not very nice and optimistic note, let me finish here. I don't know what's the format. Do we take questions? Yeah, I'll be happy to answer any questions you have or hear your comments. David.
Madam Minister, thank you very much for a very informative speech. My name is Mirza Ragimov, Uzbekistan, Rumsfeld Fellow. Do you think, is there any specific date when Georgia could be admitted to NATO, or is it just promises? And do you think it would be feasible that you would join NATO before you solve problems with the occupied territories of South Ossetia and Abkhazia? Whether it will happen before you will solve this problem, or maybe after, and is there any specific date when it might happen that Georgia would be admitted to NATO?
No, there's no date. It's never there. It never was there with any country, and it's not there for us either. It might happen any moment. It should have happened yesterday, so there is no date. As for the conflicts, in 2008 Bucharest Declaration, it never says that Georgia will become member of NATO after territorial disputes are over. It never was put as a condition, and just the contrary, NATO has a different experience. NATO had a member long ago that was divided in two. And nobody questioned Western Germany becoming member of NATO because there was a Russian army standing in another part of NATO. And third of all, saying that, officially saying that they're going to say no to Georgia because parts of Georgia are occupied by Russia, is exactly giving green light and green card to Russia, that they will create a problem, and because of the problem they've created, those countries will never get through, and this vicious cycle will be there. So they can do it in any country, anywhere in the world. We all know they do not have limits, and they do not necessarily feel that they are responsible to any sets of rules created by the international community so far. No, it's not a problem. It never was said so, and I believe that it will never be said so as an official reason for not getting Georgia on board. It's just we need to wait for that magic moment, as it happened with Baltics, for example, when 6 months before the admission, they were told specifically, very clearly, publicly, in so many different locations all around the world, that there was no way Baltics would become member of NATO, and after 6 months, they were in, because 9/11 happened. I'm not saying that something of that tragic should happen there, but there are always moments in the history that define the developments, and I believe that that moment will come. The only thing we need to do today here in Georgia, we Georgians, I mean, is to be ready for that very moment to grab the opportunity to get from the window if we are not allowed from the door. And that's what we are doing today.
My name is Anar, I'm from Azerbaijan. In a previous panel, we've been talking about United States engagement in the region, and some were arguing that the United States have been disengaging from the region for the past several years. Some would argue even that precisely because of that disengagement, some problems happened, and someone would argue even to the contrary, that because of the engagement of the United States, some problems occurred in 2008 and later on. So my question is, we're talking about a lot about this U.S. engagement. What do we mean with that? What practical steps the United States could have taken to engage more in the region? I guess the question could be like, if you were an advisor or the defense minister of the United States, what would be your advice to the president of the United States? So what would your advice be to her that the United States should do in the region?
Well, thank you for the question. Well, what will be my advice? It's not about specifically about Georgia or per se about Georgia. I would say it's not even about Georgia. My advice will be more about United States, for good or bad reasons, is meant to be the superpower in this world. And we do not know any other country that will make the world a better place than having the United States as a superpower, because the other alternatives that we know what they are and what are the options they are proposing to the world. So that will be my only advice to her or him, being the US president. Act like a superpower and act responsibly, more responsibly, like a superpower. Not let any other country, any other force dictate the rules of the game, because this is unfortunately what we are seeing after 2008 war in Georgia, and especially now with the Ukraine. This is what we are seeing on a daily basis, that there is a guy sitting in Kremlin who decides who gets what role in this world, and then everybody else is just acting according to that. And that's not the world we want to live in. So that will be my only advice. And then if that's happening, then Georgia will be better than it is today.
Thank you, Minister. My name is Georgi Kandelaki. I'm MP with the main opposition party here. But Minister, you rightly spoke about the need to resist Russian agenda. And obviously you know very well that one part of this agenda is to discredit the idea of Western liberal democracy. And one avenue through which this idea is being discredited is obviously what we call Russian soft power, Russian propaganda. Now, I subscribe to everything you said, but there has been credible research in Georgia that some media outlets that disseminate this propaganda have been funded from the Georgian government. And indeed, this has been now confirmed by the Council of Europe's Commission Against Racism and Intolerance, because obviously often Russian propaganda and hate speech overlap. How could you explain that? Most recently, there has been another piece of credible research which suggests that Sputnik, well-known Russian outlet, is being funded through Georgian embassy in Hungary. How can you explain that? And also, I'm sure the audience would be interested to hear the reasons. I join you again in your praise of the recent exercises in Georgia, and I salute this initiative of our American and British allies. But I'm sure people would be interested, and Georgian people are interested, why Georgia refused at the last moment to participate in the Anaconda exercises in Poland, was it really related to the chickenpox of 3 soldiers? Thank you.
I don't know why Hungarian embassy, Georgian embassy in Hungary is funding Sputnik, and I don't think it's right, and I do believe that it's a Russian propaganda instrument in Georgia. I don't have any doubts about it. This is why, well, I can say even more, Ministry of Defense was also funding, apparently, Sputnik, but when I became the Minister of Defense, it stopped immediately. The same goes for other agencies as well. So the only thing I can say is for my ministry that these are the contracts I sign. And I don't know what are the contracts other ministries are signing. And if there are contracts with the Russian propaganda machinery, then I think that it's wrong. It's fundamentally wrong. And there should be answers asked from those guys who are in charge of it. As for the Anaconda exercises, well, I believe you know the truth, but thank you for asking that, because if there are people in this audience who have the same question, I'll be happy to respond, obviously. There is a General Hodges' comment on it that you can also see if I'm not a reliable and credible source for it. Yes, there was a chickenpox disease discovered 24 hours before the exercises started. I could have acted irresponsibly, hiding it, and sending a company to Poland to participate in US battalion with a high risk of those American soldiers also being infected by the disease, or doing what I did. We sent a letter to US command as well as to our Polish colleagues, informing them about the disease that was spread in the army, in that very particular unit. And this is why they did not go. It was 3 cases at that moment. Now we have already 9 guys hospitalized and much more under the treatment. So that's the reality, very unfortunate reality, because we actually fought for being part of those exercises and got, with the US supported backing, got invited to the exercises. But unfortunately, we had to say no to participation at the very last moment. Thank you very much.